Hey everyone, Switch here. In this video, I'm going to talk about something that has still very much been causing quite a huge debate within the scientific community in America. Before I go into the exact topic, all of you may have known about the ancient sailors of Scandinavia, the Vikings. As the Vikings became so well known for as being skilled navigators, which has traveled as so far south all the way down the ancient Constantinople or the present-day Istanbul in Turkey, and as far as west to Iceland, Greenland, and even to northern part of Canada, in more precise Newfoundland, because they found a settlement there. Even though that particular settlement was only for a short time in the 1960s. But here's the part of the things happened. The Vikings had this writing system which they called runic language alphabet. It consists of different symbols. And this runic language were mostly used on stones, and even on hills or even just boulders, and those stones were later known as runestones, and they can be found throughout the entire Scandinavia, including my country. But here's the thing, by the end of the Viking Age, the runic language fell off use, and ever since then, no one actually didn't know what it actually said, until later on they were able to translate it. But here's the thing, the Vikings has been known to be traveled as so far south to Istanbul, and as far southwest until like Newfoundland, part of the Canada, at least around 400 years before Christopher Columbus, even he came to the New World. But here's supposed that things they changed eventually. During the 1800s, or 1898 for to be precise, in central Minnesota, there was this Swedish immigrant named Olof Oman. He had reported that he had found something in a field outside Salem in Douglas County, and this particular thing that he found was a stone slab, which was later known as the Kensington runestone. Yeah, they had unearthed an actual runestone. But that's the part of the story. At the time, he didn't even know what this could actually been. And even his Olaf's 10-year-old son, Edward, had said that he thought this could have been a calendar of the Native Americans. So Olaf actually decided to put out standing out this particular stone at the local bank, which he did. And this became a talk around town for quite a while afterward at discovery. But then one day a man actually came to this bank, and he actually was an expert in translating different languages. And he immediately recognized this language actually were the Vikings' runic alphabet. And he actually took as a script a photo of this inscription, and it took him some time to translate this inscription, it was a record leave behind some Scandinavian explorers in the 14th century, around 1362 AD. But here's the most part of this thing. If this were supposed to be Viking explorers from the 1362 AD, that wouldn't make no sense, because the Viking Age ended around 1066 AD, over 300 years early. So how does that make sense? But then, many people actually started questioning if this actually was even real. But then, a copy of in the inscription made its way to University of Minnesota, where an a language expert, a professor named Olaus G. Breda. He he was a professor in Scandinavian language and literature, and after had been he did notice some part in this runic language that after closely looked out on his writings, he can immediately declare the stone was a forgery, and he even published that as an article which appeared in a newspaper around 1910. He even forwarded the copies on inscription to fellow linguists and historians in Scandinavia, and they all also made this could conclude this was a fraud and complete forgery. But what was the reason? Why would anyone say if this actually said? Why would anyone say this was a hoax? Well, here's the thing. The stone actually did contain the runic language, yes. But what the professor Olaus Breda, what he managed to figure out that some of the words wasn't actually common or wasn't even used during the supposed 1300s. And that was including him to make this were, well, it's which eventually led them to believing this is a forgery. But he still claimed that even then, when he passed to the day when he passed away, that the stone was authentic runestone. But despite this, there was also around a time when Olaf found this runestone, the one had become widely discussed, and there had also been a renewed interest in the Vikings from the Scandinavia during the 1800s. And most of the people today still think that this could actually be an authentic runestone. And that, well, it's hard to be saying exactly, because most of the other scholars and other historians who have been studying this runestone for decades, or even part of a century, all actually made the old conclusion. It's a fake, a fraud, forgery. And most of the experts had also made this very strong conclusion that Olof Omen, the Swedish immigrant, made this stone at some time before he supposed unearthed it. That he made this stone and then buried it, and some time later after that he unearthed it and supposed to have found an authentic runestone. But what would he even supposed to be doing that? What will he even gain from it much aside? He wouldn't even gain much from it. Maybe that most people were probably, first people did believe this was an authentic runestone. But after this particular professor in Scandinavian language at the University of Minnesota, he made the conclusion this was a fake stone. But why would anyone else could say this is still an authentic? But here's another part of the story. If Olaf did make the stone, assuming that he actually did make this, here's a part of it. If he would have the knowledge of what words, if he would have the skills or even the extended knowledge what words that was even used during the 1300s or during the 14th century, then it probably would have been harder to clear this as a forgery or not. But today, still to this very day, a lot of historians and scholars and very language experts are still firm this is a forgery stone, and that most of them even to this day, even back then in the late 1800s and the early 2000s now, they all still believe that Olof Omen made this stone. But personally, I can't say if I actually believe this is an actual authentic runestone. But anyways, around 1911, Olaf decided to sell this runestone to the Minnesota Historical Society, and it now is currently resides on the Minnesota's Rune Museum, where it stands today. But it is still a lot of there is still a lot of historians, experts, scholars who are still debating, even including in America and in Scandinavia, about this stone is supposed to be an authentic or if it's a forgery. Even if so, it's hard to be seen. But assuming if the stone was a real authentic, it would have been showing a lot different. They would have changed the history books about the Vikings. If assuming that the Vikings would have to travel so far inwards in the country to the Midwest, to the current day place of Minnesota, it would have changed a lot of our understanding and, well, at least a lot of the Vikings' presence in the Americas. We know that there's the settlement in Newfoundland in northern Canada. It didn't last long. It was settled in the early 1021 AD, and it was only there for only a short time before it was abandoned. And assuming that the Vikings did somehow travel all the way to Midwest of Minnesota, what happened to them? It's unlikely they did stay there because at the time there was a lot of Native Americans tribes in the area. And of course, some of them may not have been very friendly towards new strangers in their land. But when this came out that it's supposed a runestone was found in Minnesota, and since Minnesota has a large population of Swedish ancestry, when this came out, people in Minnesota who felt that they actually found an actual runestone of the Vikings in our town. This is incredible. But they must have felt very disappointed after they found out that the stone was later determined to be fake. How would people react to then? Well, they probably at first felt proud, excited that they somehow found an actual runestone in Minnesota. But after a professor in the Scandinavian languages actually determined it was a hoax, that the stone was in fact fake. But it's a lot of this still the debating, still among people, the scholars and experts, both in Scandinavia and in America, are still debating that this stone is fake. But there are still some people that strongly still believe this is an actual runestone. And that they cannot probably not make the every other experts or scholars to agree with them. This might still be an argue between the common people and with the scientific community around the world. So, my opinion about this, I don't know if this is a fake or a real runestone. If it was a real, I would have been quite amazed about it. But if it was a fake, well, I was still a little bit disappointed that this couldn't actually be a runestone by the famous Vikings. But anyways, everyone, this is up to you to decide if you would actually believe if this is an actual runestone or not. It is, like I said, it has been quite a debating topic within America's scientific community and Scandinavia. Is Kensington runestone fake or real? That is up to you, all of you, to decide what to believe, if the stone is real or fake. You can let me know in the comment section below. This is Switch Diablo, over and out.